So I was just with a teacher, an IFS teacher, who was saying something I've heard other teachers say, that self is being and parts are doing. So self doesn't make the breakfast, almost like self can't make breakfast. And I have parts of myself who feel like that's makes self sound like it's in a wheelchair or something, like self is incapacitated and limited in some way. And and then I think, well, are we seriously saying that Jesus, or Yeshua, as I think of him, who was awakened as Christ, he was walking as Christ in the world, which for me is synonymous with walking as self in the world. And everything he did was his parts doing it with self leading. I'm curious, like, is because that's just not been my picture. I guess I've believed that we can be in full embodiment of self and that self can do in the world. But I may have that metaphysically wrong. So I'd love to hear what they've got to say about that.
So would I.
Mm.
What do you want to say to this? They're saying it is a little bit of both. Parts primarily do. Sometimes they be. Self primarily is. Sometimes self does. Okay, they're talking about the word action. They're saying parts automatic action. Okay, like I was asking a sense of urgency. What is this? They're just saying automatic action. It's simply that. Okay. And then they're saying self, pause, and patience, perspective, clarity, understanding. And then they're bringing me to the heart. So they're saying an awareness of the heart and what is the right thing to do here. And then the action comes, they're saying a heart led action. And they're really emphasizing this heart led action, heart led action, heart led action. Okay, and now they're talking about parts and self. Okay, and they're showing this energy. Can you make this a little more clear from me? Okay, they're talking about this energy from the heart of self to the part and back to the heart again. Okay, what are you saying here about this? And they're talking about the part being aligned with self and no more burdens to behold within that part. Huh, okay, what are you saying here? They're talking about self-delegating the task out to the part sometimes, not all the time, oftentimes doing this. Okay, what are you saying with parts? They're talking about so these unburdened parts, like this part is like I love doing this. It's like this part is like super excited about something. They're super stoked about something. Like maybe this is your martial arts part, or maybe this is your music playing part. Maybe this is your part that likes to sing songs, whatever part it is, it's something that it loves to do, something that it's passionate about, something that it's excited about. And they're talking about self-delegating the task to that part because it loves to do that, because that's what brings it joy. And then it's like self is saying, by all means, go do that. But we only have 20 minutes for it because these other parts need their turn. It really does feel like being a really good, loving parent inside. And then they're showing like sometimes, the parts can work together, like, someone who's singing and playing guitar at the same time. That's two different parts doing that. And then maybe there's a part that enjoys like dancing and wiggling while that's happening. So that one's on board doing things. And then they're showing self being like the orchestra conducting that.
Hmm.
They're coming back to this like tie-in between self and the parts, that energy that runs through it. They're showing like self as the conductor, and like the energy coming out from the conductor is going into the symphony, into the individual parts of the symphony. And some take a back seat at different times. Some go out in the front at different times. They're talking about like some parts will be up here taking notes. They're talking about like maybe there's a part that's writing lyrics to another song because say this again. Because it sees a perspective based on the song that's being played right now. Like maybe a sound inspires it, or one of the words in this song inspires it. And so it kind of takes off and starts writing that in the background.
Hmm.
And then it shares it afterwards. And then Self is like, okay, we're going to pause and we're going to take the time to write this down for this part. And then Self's like, okay, part, write it down, go for it. And then that part is just, shh, yeah, it's like really excited to do that. And they're saying you're all an orchestra, a symphony. We are all an orchestra, a symphony. And then they're talking about like these burdens are like out of tune instruments. They're like showing like a part that's playing an out of tune instrument, and then it gets really frustrated because it's out of tune and it's not working the way that it wants to work. And so then it gets really mad and starts hitting the instrument. And they're just talking about we all have these out of tune instruments. We all have these parts with these burdens, and they all work how they work. And then when self energy can come in, and I see like self going to this part that's frustrated and upset about this instrument, and I see self getting down to this part's level and just loving it and giving it exactly what it needs. And there's no reprimand for it having broken the instrument. There's only deep love and compassion. And then it's just like the burden melts out of that part. And then it's like, whatever, it's fine that the instrument is broken. I'm going to pick up another instrument over here. This one feels more like me, and like the parts, like, they're talking about the part's soul is calling to it in that moment that it picks up its new instrument. And from there on, the symphony continues to play. And as time goes on, more parts switch out their instruments. And then they're just kind of showing how this whole orchestra, it becomes more and more finely tuned over time. And they're talking about over lifetimes. They're talking about, okay, can you make this a little more clear for me? They're talking about like, each subsequent lifetime, it's like, okay, what broken or out of tune instruments am I going to take from past lifetimes to benefit the healing of this orchestra right here? And it's like picking ones to have there, and then instruments that get broken in the process of that lifetime, that get out of tune in that process. for the healing of them, to bring more cohesiveness to the orchestra and more love to it. And then they're just talking about sprinkling that over lifetimes until eventually, eventually, and I mean, this eventually goes a very long way, and I don't see the end of it. Eventually,
Mhm.
it's just all going together, and everyone's in the right place, and the place that feels right to them. And that's what they're saying with the word right. It's not the cognitive idea of what's right. It is this like, boom, my heart is saying this isn't just the right place. This is the perfect place for me. And it is in perfect attunement with everyone else around me. And it is just all these parts and self in perfect, beautiful, cohesive attunement. And this is just the most extraordinary orchestra you have never seen. It is like impossible for us to comprehend. And like this is the closest we can get. I mean, they're talking about like if the whole world was an orchestra that was perfectly in tune and perfectly working together. And they're saying it's just even beyond that. Beyond that, beyond that, beyond that. Okay, they're leaving it at that.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So the enlightened masters and male and female that we've had walking the planet, are they consciously as self in that kind of orchestration of parts? Or is enlightenment an unconscious orchestration of parts in this way? Like people like Jesus, Jeshua, or, you know, the Buddha, or even, Eckhart Tolle and stuff like that.
Okay, what do you want to say to this? Okay, they're saying they are all human too. Okay, they're really emphasizing this all human too. Okay, so what are you saying here? They're saying humanity is your parts.
Yeah.
The way you are here in this world. Okay, they're talking about the way you are here in this world. What are you saying about this? Okay, they're saying, what are we saying to this? What are you saying to this? Okay, can you make this a little more clear for me? Okay, they're talking about human in the way that it's often viewed as a bad, negative thing. Human, 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 human. Like there's this perspective, this growing perspective they're saying of humans are trash, and that these people who have these perspectives, the parts that have these perspectives, are only seeing the burdens and how the burdens are driving people. And it again, they're saying they only see the burden. They only see the burden. And they're saying they don't see the real human inside, the real beautiful human inside. And then they're saying that there's beauty in these burdens too. And they're not seeing that either. They're
Mm,
saying burdens are born out of love. It is saying, I love you so much, I will take on this role for you
mm,
to save you, to help you, to keep you safe, to keep you well. And I will take it on as a costume, as a mask, maybe even as a prison, even though I do not understand that it's a prison when I first take it on, and it becomes a prison over time. I take it on because I love you that much. They're really emphasizing this. I love you that much. 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 Okay, what do you want to say to this? And they're coming back to they are all human. They are all human. They are all human. They are all human. They're saying some have fewer of these masks of these prisons. They're saying when all masks and all prisons, so all burdens are released from the body, the soul is released from the body as well.
Mm-hmm.
For it is no longer needed here, for it has no one to serve here. They're talking about these masks. Oftentimes people refer to these as mirrors, the mirrors that reflect each other, that I mean, somebody's burden part comes up and it ticks off one of my burden parts, and then my system's really pissed off about it, and that is a mirror telling me what it is, like reflecting within me what it is that I need to heal, that is still here, that hasn't been healed, that I can heal. And they're saying, and when you've released all those, you no longer have any to give to others. And then they're talking about this sweet spot when there are fewer of them left, much fewer than most people carry, much, much, much fewer. Okay, what about this sweet spot? Okay, what are you saying about this? They're talking about the burdens contained within you. Okay, what are you showing with this? They're talking about like a pinpoint reflection, like a teeny, teeny, tiny little reflection. They're talking about it sending energy forward in someone, but it's not clear that it came from you. But it still moves them along their path towards healing that part. And then the rest of you, they're just showing self energy. They're just showing self and parts that aren't carrying burdens. Just self energy leading the way. And it's like these now what's left of the ones that are burdened in. Again, they're just talking about that pinpoint mirror. And it just sends how do you want to put this? A gentle, loving, kind energy that helps them unearth something within themselves. But it's not in that same way as our regular mirrors, when our parts come up and take over and piss off the part of someone else or trigger it in whatever way. They're talking about it being different. So it's not visible and they're not aware. It's like the other person's not aware. They're saying this is the sweet spot near the end. And by end, they mean near the end of the unburdening of your own parts. All of them, the last ones that need it, that came here to unburden. That's the sweet spot. And they're saying few have made it to that sweet spot. Some have, few have. And then they're talking about a chunk of people in this spot where it may appear that they're in this sweet spot until something rubs you the wrong way. Something doesn't feel right to you. They're showing like in my body, there's just something in my heart that just says something is off here. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it what it is, but something is off here. Mm, it's almost like a sense of there's something deceptive here, whether that's intentional or not. And they're saying it's often not intentional. They're saying oftentimes they're deceiving themselves.
Mm.
It's just parts not, they're doing what they're doing. And there's like a lot of well-meaning parts that are just in the spaces that they're in and they're doing the things that they're doing. And they don't have that bigger picture, that deeper clarity of it. And then there's something off here. There's just something that doesn't feel right. Like there's all these other areas with these people that feel great, they're saying, that feel right, that feel true. And then there's that thing that's just like, this feels off. There's just something about this that feels off. They're saying, allow them to be off. They'll get on when they're ready.
Yeah.
Oh, like it is really just like this. I mean, they just hold such deep love for all people and all parts. They have this amazing way of just seeing that beautiful perspective. It's just they see the innocence and the good intention immediately behind all the stuff that ticks our parts off, that makes our parts really upset and frustrated and judgmental. And then they have that same love for those parts in us.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, they're leaving it at that.